Gill Alexander. It's Kelly Bidlin, producer number 9. So much more than a producer. Little Orleans in the background.
What's up, man?
Still the one from back
Still
in
the one?
Yeah, back in the 70s, I believe it was.
It's a good jam.
Good jam. How you doing, man? You good?
Good. I'm going to start flashing up 9. How about that?
What do you mean? Oh, 9. Do you not like that, producer number 9? You don't like that so much more than the producer?
No. Well, I like it. That's fine.
Just curious.
I liked someone gave me a compliment of being so much more to the producer on Twitter the other day when I was actually just doing my job as a producer well. So that I kind of cracked up about.
We got a bunch of college hoops. We got a bunch of baseball. Special numbers game investigation revealing that the Major League Baseball season, I know there were 2 games in Korea. Don't tweet at me. Begins in earnest. How about that? Tomorrow. Aces abound. Some great matchups. Jason Weingart and Mark Borchardt and I did a Beating the Book baseball preview podcast yesterday. Everybody giving all their bets. Yes, those that still exist, so I urge you to check that out after this show. But we will have Borchardt on later, as we will Paul Sporer. How about that? A Sporer appearance from Fangraphs.
Let's go.
Base winner for the Bet US show as well. We'll have them talking baseball. Will Hill's going to probably have some baseball thoughts as well. But college hoops from him and JVT coming up as well. NBA. And I'll review my baseball bets here momentarily. But NBA last night, Kelly. Let us begin there, shall we?
I told you it was going to be a night.
You did tell me it's going to be a night. I was like, this is a night.
This is a night.
Bucks up 19 in the fourth quarter. They lose it to the Lakers, who were not playing LeBron James last night. And AD and Austin Reeves went off. Lakers come back, win it in double OT, 128 to 124. AD with 34 and 23, not to mention 4 blocks and 2 steals.
Just insane stat lines in this game.
Giannis in defeat, 29, 21, and 11. And Austin Reeves had himself, messed around and had himself a triple-double.
Yeah.
128 to 124. Does that say more about the Lakers to you or the Bucks?
Bucks.
I think so too, right?
I don't.
You never believed in this team this year.
Who, Milwaukee?
Lately, as I recall.
Yes, you've read it correct. I mean, you know, I was a big Giannis guy. I was excited when they made the move. It's just we've seen it now for several months. I can't. Here's the thing with the Knicks with having their injuries and the Sixers having their injuries, you can't fully you consider them, I think, as Eastern Conference contenders until they get healthy, if they get healthy. So the problem is still, Gill, is at the end of the day, I think it's going to be Celtics and the Bucks are going to be the team that is still left. But these problems that they keep having, I mean, it's over and over again. I mean, only scoring, I think it was 13 points in the fourth quarter last night. You let the Lakers back in this game just seemingly very easily in the final couple minutes of the game, and then they overtime just couldn't get anything going. It's tough. It's tough because they've got some really talented players, and it's tough to watch them do that.
One of the more interesting things in sports that the casual fan of sports will not really have been focused on. I'll use my buddy Tommy in D.C. as Mr. Casual Sports fan, or he's a big football fan, but less for other sports. If I said to him, do you know that the Orlando Magic might end up as the 3rd seed in the Eastern Conference, he'd be like, wait, that's not possible. What are you talking about? But that really is the truth. Is Mosley to you the guy who's going to win Coach of the Year now? Is he the front runner in your head?
I have very mixed feelings on that race because I think that he is probably should win the award. I wonder though if it's a Maxey situation. I think Daigneault and Maxey are kind of similar cases in their different awards markets where they were installed. You
can't bet it until it's installed.
They became such early favorites, Gill, and it's made sense for so long to give those guys the awards that they're in that now you have these guys making late pushes that those stories have kind of been out of the media. We haven't really talked about them too much with Maxey and Daigneault for a while I think Mosley could. I think if he did, it would be deserving. I don't have a bet on it just because it feels like we've already given this award to Daigneault. But, I'm glad you brought him up because he's the guy I think should win it.
Daigneault minus 450 at DraftKings. Jamal Mosley of the Magic 6-1, who is right behind him as the next short shot in that race.
The last thing is just, it's so tough to talk about the Bucks, Gill, because I think they are the biggest challenger to the Celtics in the East, right?
Yep.
I think though that the Bucks are going to have a bigger challenge getting to the Eastern Conference Finals to face the Celtics. I think if they get there, they actually chance.
Bigger than in previous years, you mean?
Yeah, just because what we've seen this team do the whole season, I think the idea that they're going to get through multiple competitive series fine and get to the Eastern Conference Finals is the bigger question right now.
Old school Warriors last night. Clay with 28 in a starting performance.
Yeah.
There you go, Clay.
Came out firing.
Now a one-game lead over the Rockets for that coveted 10th hole in the play-in in the Western Conference.
Betting pretty big against them tonight.
Ever since, you are? What's your bet tonight?
Magic. I laid 4.5. I don't get that number at all. I make it like 7. It's like 5 right now. And then weird market movement because I bet it 4.5 on the opener. It shot out to like 6.5. I thought it was going to settle in there. Woke up this morning and back down to like 5. Pretty surprising to me.
4
Actually,
right now.
even less. It's even going less. Warriors taking money, or Warriors taking money still this morning. Yeah, 4 3.5s out there right now. I don't get that number at all.
And then ever since I bet SGA for MVP, he stopped scoring 30 a game.
Yeah, and hopefully he didn't get hurt last night. He got nicked up a little bit in that game against the Pelicans. That was a great game against New Orleans.
Thunder had a huge lead, gave up that lead, then still secured the win at the end. All right, is that your one NBA bet?
Yeah, I played small on Denver on the opener at 6.5. It's out to like 7.5 right now. There's a lot of injury questions in that though, so I wouldn't go messing around with it right now until you kind of know what's going on with Jamal Murray, Eric Gordon, Bradley Beal.
All right, no tennis bets today. Sorry about that. We're at the business end, as they say, of the Miami Open, the second half of the Sunshine Double, so no plays today. It's very chalky McChuckerson, I think. Hope everybody was on Tomasz Machat yesterday. Tomasz Machat is actually how I pronounce it. Sorry about that. That was easy peasy, straight set winner for everybody. So over 24 units now on the year in match play. But baseball, just to review again, on the cusp of having Sporer and Borchard on here today, and the baseball season beginning in earnest tomorrow with great matchups. I know Zach Wheeler against Spencer Strider is probably the headline matchup, but there's others. Logan Webb and Yu Darvish in the Giants-Padres game. Aces abound tomorrow. The bets that I have in pocket heading into the season, and this is, I'd say, more pre-flop than I've had in recent years, to be honest with you, because I sort of, that Braves thing I did a couple years ago was in September. When I bet the Braves 17 times at plus money when they were behind the Mets to win the NL East. But what I have this year is a smattering. And so I usually, the one season win total I had last year, again, was over on the Rangers. They not only soared over that, they ended up winning the World Series. Wish I had bet that. But I got them over the season win total. My season win totals, as we talked about a few weeks back, I got the Padres over 81.5. For reasons I gave back then, but essentially they really addressed their weaknesses, specifically the bullpen. A thinned-out rotation is now bolstered. And so I do believe that the Padres really figured out, finally, it's like, we're not going to win this as an all-star team. Let's actually do this by having Dylan Cease and Michael King in that rotation, by addressing the bullpen. So over 81.5, and I went through a whole dissertation about how, in terms of Bill James' Pythagorean theorem and sequencing, that the Padres should have won instead of 80, let's get it exactly, instead of winning 82 games last year, they should have won 93 based on Pythag. They should have won 91 based on sequencing. And so for this to be set as low as it was at 81.5, I went over. It's now 83.5. Obviously, I don't like it quite as much, but I do like it still. I just think is you're not asking him to do much. You're just asking him to tick over 500. So I would still recommend it at the current price. But again, we gave it out at 81.5 here on the show a few weeks back. Cubs remain at 84.5. That's my second favorite one. That's the other one I played. Cubs over 84.5. Again, they were another one that underperformed last year. They only won 83 games. They should have won 91 based on Bill James' Pythagorean theorem, expected wins, that is, and, of course, sequencing. They're still at 84.5. See a Suzuki monster second half last year, 938 OPS. Michael Busch, Pete Crow Armstrong, Ben Brown, some of the names you'll probably hear throughout this year that you'll probably get to know. I think the Cubs highly undervalued. So Padres over 81.5, Cubs over 84.5. That Cubs number is still intact. And then I went crazy on the Giants, and I did this before they acquired Blake Snell. But somebody in the National League, I didn't bet them to win the division. There's no way they're going to overcome the Dodgers in 162 games. But somebody in the National League has got to make it as wild cards. And I think the Giants are poised for it. And even before they got Blake Snell, they still had Logan Webb. Kyle Harrison is still there, and the sneaky acquisition of Jordan Hicks and making him a starter. Then you add Blake Snell as your number 2. You got yourself a rotation. It's not a team that if they get to the postseason, you want to play in the postseason. And, of course, they bolstered their power with Jorge Soler and Matt Chapman. So the Giants, not to win the division, but to make the playoffs at plus 172. That's still around plus 145 now. Still like it. Giants to win the NL, I got it 27-1. It's at 21-1. Giants to win the World Series, I got it 53-1. That's at 45-1. So you're like, you're crazy. National League World Series. The point being that in baseball, if you get into the show, anything is possible. The playoffs are a complete crapshoot. And so in baseball, it's a little bit of a different calculus than it is in the other sports that we know and love here in North America. And then the only other thing I bet was completely a Jason Weingart thing, where he was like O'Neill Cruz 100-1 MVP National League, O'Neill Cruz of the Pirates, and then he went nuts in spring training. He kept going nuts. Go. So I bet it because I'm like, okay, maybe you're right, 100-1. Now, always shop around because O'Neill Cruz right now, he's 25-1 at DraftKings, but at Advocate Coral, he's 65-1. So, shop around. There were huge differences in prices. 65-1's a bet. 25-1, I'd hold off. A lot of baseball on the show. JVT on the other side. Some college hoops and NBA next.
A numbers game on VSiN, the sports betting network.
With so many bottles to choose from, it's easy to find your favorite, all at the lowest prices for over 30 years. Find what you love and love what you find at Total Wine & More. Drink responsibly. Be 21. It's Gill Alexander. It's Kelly Bidlin. It's a numbers game. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is Jonathan Von Tobel. At MeJVT on Twitter. He's our senior.
Not yet.
Oh, no, not yet?
Not yet.
Oh, I'm so excited to talk to him.
We got Reggie walking in, though.
Oh, okay. Well, it's not JVT then. By the way, I should mention, I was just looking at this over here. Pepperdine transfer, Michael Ajayi.
Yeah.
Going to Gonzaga. Those of us who follow the Pepperdine program, that's a pretty big deal. Pepperdine, who fired Lorenzo Romar. They should have. But all those kids were super-duper loyal to him. And they are now spraying all over college basketball. So Houston Millett going to Alabama. He's committed. That's a huge addition for them next year. And then Michael Ajayi going to Gonzaga. He's from Washington. That's a huge pickup for the Zags. 6'7" wingman. He's going to be big with the Zags next year. So
I bet there's a good chance to get back to the Sweet 16, Gil.
9 in a row. By the way, we haven't made enough of that.
I know, right? It's
9
ridiculous.
Sweet 16s in a row is virtually impossible.
Yeah.
And again, this year was an anomaly because at one point, take him at his word. You know, if you want to, but I take him at his word. Mark Few didn't think that there was a moment where he wasn't sure they were going to get to the dance in late December, and here they are. And a lot of people still like him to go for. Didn't win the conference tournament either, right? But here they are in the Sweet 16 for the 9th straight year. And remember, this is a program that until the late 90s, nobody nationally was paying attention to. And then Cinderella Story, I believe it was in 99. And then once Mark Few took over, so many disappointments in the NCAA tournament, but a fixture in the NCAA tournament. This generation, if you're a kid who's 25 years old, you don't know a life without them.
Oh, totally, yeah.
You know, and so.
Even older than that, right? I mean, the bulk of my adult, time as adult, like Gonzaga basketball has been that's been a huge thing.
One of the great sports announcing operas, and I use the word opera very deliberately, was the Adam Morrison crying game against UCLA.
Yep.
When Gonzaga blew that game against UCLA famously in the NCAA tournament, and Gus Johnson and Len Elmore were on the call. And I believe, we go back to when was the first time this happened, when was the first time that happened. We talk about Jimmy Vaccaro, NBA season, just period season win totals, 1989. Season win totals didn't exist as a betting thing before 1989. I was talking about that Carolina-Duke game that was 7-0 at halftime. First time air ball had ever been chanted by a crowd. That was, late 70s when that happened. That opera with Gus Johnson and Len Elmore, how all the announcers are, you got to be kidding me, right? He's like a very that was the first time that anybody like Len Elmore, just incredulous at what he was watching, was shouting that.
Thought he was going to be such a good pro, Morrison.
Morrison? Oh, yeah, not so much. JVT joins us now, courtesy of the Progressive Guest Line. He is not only our senior NBA analyst, but also, of course, the co-host of VSiN Primetime weeknights here at the network. What's happening, John?
Nothing much, guys. It's a good time of year. Nitty-gritty NBA, college basketball, obviously. Baseball starts tomorrow. I'm very excited for baseball tomorrow. I can't wait.
I am too, actually. Do you have any season longs that you bet?
Yeah, I got the Yankees under 94.5 win total. That was before the Garrett Cole news, so got a little fortunate there. We'll see what happens to him. Over on the Royals, 74.5. Got some fun long shots. I got Tristan McKenzie to win Cy Young at 100-1.
Ooh, wow.
And Blue Jays to win the AL East at 4-1. So some fun futures to sweat for the next eternity.
You are the first guy. You're the first guy, anecdotally. I'm sure others have the Blue Jays, but you're the first guy I've heard say you have the Blue Jays because I've heard a lot of Rays recently from a lot of people. So yeah. Blue Jays.
I kind of felt like the market was a little mispriced in the AL East. Like I didn't think the Yankees, obviously, bet under the win total, so I didn't think, Gill, that they should be like co-favorites with Baltimore. I really like Toronto's bullpen. Obviously, they put two guys on the injured list to start the season just on Monday, but I think you're still good enough there to, when you look at 4-1, by my measure, there was enough value there worth playing, I think.
Yeah, this came up the other day. I'm glad you just mentioned it. I just wanted to say one more time. The Baltimore Orioles in spring training this year were 23-6, and someone tweeted about this the other day. So in case they were like, "Is that a thing?" And my response was, "Spring training records are never a thing, but 23-6 is out of control good."
Silly.
And if you follow them at all, they would just destroy any bullpen that they put in front of the Orioles. So the Orioles might just be way better than any of us think. We'll see. Okay, NBA. Give me your, as we're roughly 10 games out from the postseason, or from the play-in tournament, I should say, the play-in games. Give me the most interesting JVT take as we approach the playoffs. I'll leave it open.
Okay, most interesting take. I guess that... Okay, you know what? This might be interesting, and I think Kelly might be in. I think maybe we're sleeping on how good the Orlando Magic could be in the Eastern Conference. I mean, it's a team that is one of the best defensive teams in the NBA, could finish as high as third in the Eastern Conference and in non-garbage time defensive rating when all is said and done. They have a legitimate Coach of the Year candidate, and like guys at almost every single position, they got some really good players. The emergence of Jalen Suggs is not only a really good point of attack defender, but a 40% three-point shooter has allowed them to kind of space the floor. They are deep by their own standards, right? Like they've got guys coming off the bench that they trust. I think if you look at them and look at their ability to really muck up a lot of these games, and they put some impressive performances together. The other day, New Orleans goes in there as a 2.5-point road favorite. They absolutely wiped the floor with the Pelicans. So I think if we're talking about like interesting and like teams we're not really talking about enough, right? Everybody's waiting for the Knicks to get healthy. And, the Bucks looked like they were turning it around before they blew it yesterday in double overtime. And yet here we are with Orlando, like quietly just churning along, one of the best defensive teams in the NBA with a ton of length and size and a little bit of upside on offense. I think that's probably the team we're kind of sleeping on. That if there's a surprise run out of somebody, maybe it's not the Knicks. Maybe it's Orlando.
Yeah, I didn't expect the Magic to come up in each of our first two segments today, but here we are. Another vote for the Atlanta Magic.
All right.
12 games in the association tonight. What'd you play?
So I'm still looking around. I think at the top of the list is the Oklahoma City Thunder today. Now we're waiting for the injury report. It's getting bet up. The second leg of a back-to-back. Speaking of, they play yesterday against the New Orleans Pelicans, but this is a big litmus test for the Houston Rockets today. Look, the Rockets have been awesome. We know about the run that they have been on up to this point. But if you evaluate their opponents that they've been playing, you're talking about, the Portlands, Utahs, Chicagos, Washington twice, San Antonio. Like, it hasn't really been great. And so they've taken care of business, as they should. But this does seem to be one of those things where the market kind of overreacted a bit. I mean, they were just talking about, or they just played in Oklahoma City the other day. They were catching 6.5. I shouldn't say the other day. It was a month ago. They were catching 6.5. And, of course, no, excuse me, they were catching 10. And they lost. They didn't cover 112-95. Now, all of a sudden, we're sitting here, and it's 6.5 because they've been on a little bit of a run. Seems like a cheap number. So I laid it with OKC. That's at the top of the list for right now. I'm still sifting through some of the injury reports and whatnot, but that, for me, is the best bet of the day.
Well, and, John, that Rockets number was with Şengün, too, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
that's the other part, Kelly. Like, that's a really, like, they haven't lost since they lost Şengün, but, again, they haven't played a legitimate defense.
Yeah, they've won 7 and a tick because he got hurt mid-game in the previous one, but 7 games outright since he's been out of the lineup, which is, even despite the competition no one would have thought would come. 1 game behind the Warriors, again, for that number 10 spot in the Western Conference. Sweet 16 tomorrow, John. 4 tomorrow, 4 on Friday. What do you like best?
All right, so I played a couple of numbers here. First off, and this one was moving against me, so I'll give out Iowa State's my team, guys. I freaking love this team. They're absolutely brilliant. When you have the ability to pressure opposing backcourts the way that they do, one of the best teams in the country in forcing turnovers. In fact, I think they actually might be up to literally the best. And you're taking on an Illinois team that has no true point guard, that has questionable play on defense, as we've seen throughout this entire season. So I actually laid 2. Down to 1.5, so I still think that's playable. I think Iowa State, I picked them to win the national championship. I love this team. And by the way, they have covered 72% of their games. Like, the market has slept on them all season long. So it's not surprising, once again, to see the market move against them here. The others that I played, UConn, I laid the points there with the Huskies. Now, I laid 9.5. It's 11 right now. I think that it's going to come back down, especially once we get closer to game time. So I think 10 is a playable number. So if you get that 10 pop up, and there's a couple 10.5s out there right now, I think that that's something you want to do. The San Diego State Aztecs are one of the most overvalued teams in the country. They can't shoot. They had an outlier shooting performance against Yale. UConn's going to go out there and suffocate them to death, I believe, and win by a wide margin. It's just what they do. And then the last one is Purdue. I was really impressed, and I get it. It's Utah State, but they took no prisoners in that game whatsoever. And when you're facing teams like Gonzaga and Utah State that play primarily for low post players, this time around it's Graham Ike. I think that plays into the hands of Purdue. I think more perimeter-oriented teams are going to give the Boilermakers trouble. And I think this is one where, again, if you're going to be comfortable defensively, I think you're going to be able to come in here and win by margin. I was waiting for an opportunity to play against Gonzaga. This is the first time it's presented itself, and so I laid it here with the Boilermakers.
You casually mentioned that you have Iowa State to win it all. When did you make that call, JVT?
Let's see. I bet them, I want to say like a month and a half, 2 months ago to win the whole thing. And then obviously like with the brackets and stuff like that, like they were my selection. So yeah, I've been on them for a little bit. And, to be honest, dude, Gill, I mean, I have some insight following them. Got a bunch of UNLV connections, right? Keyshawn Gilbert and TJ Altenberger. So yeah, I like this team a lot.
What's your number that you have bet on them?
25, 26 to 1, something like that.
All right. JVT on Iowa State. John, thank you. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Jonathan Von Tobel, courtesy of the Progressive Guest Line. VSiN senior NBA analyst, of course, co-host of Primetime. VSiN Primetime with Tim Murray. Weeknights here at VSiN. We'll come back. Will Hill, baseball, college hoops, whatever else he's betting. The host of the Should Have Bet More podcast next.
A numbers game on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Start betting smarter with a VSiN Pro subscription. Sign up on a VSiN Pro annual subscription today. Get your first year for only $199 instead of the typical $240. So typical. Just use promo code ANG for that savings. Get VSiN Pro access to everything we do for the entire year, including our daily best bets with the leaderboard to see which VSiN expert has the hot hand, betting splits to show you where the money and bets are moving for every game, betting systems, premium analysis and 24/7 video access, plus access to our March Madness betting hub with picks for every game of the tournament. Remember to use promo code ANG, though.
ANG like a numbers game, folks.
Get your first year of VSiN Pro access for only $199. Sign up today at VSiN.com/subscribe. It's Gill Alexander. It's Kelly Bidlin, live from Barcanada, the Barrage here at the D, downtown Las Vegas. Just to let you know how the music works here at the D, there's about 5 or 6 songs from various artists, and then a Bob Seger jam. And then another 5 or 6 songs, and then more Seger.
And then every time it is a Bob Seger jam, unless it's Night Moves, I have to turn to Gill and go, is that Bob Seger again?
I take a listen. I'm like, oh, that's Seger, all right. Yeah, they love Bob Seger here at the D. Does the D stand for Detroit? I guess so.
Yep.
Derek, Detroit, downtown. We've talked about this before.
3, yeah.
By the way, yesterday, did you watch any NIT?
No, I did not. I was watching NBA.
Great game between Indiana State and, was it West Virginia
Knew
last
you were
night?
going there. I saw the highlights.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, as they call him, Robbie Avila, big 3 late, that helped Indiana State secure the win. They advanced to the semis. Georgia was the other team that advanced to the semis. The other 2 quarters are tonight. What's your favorite nickname for Robbie Avila? Is it Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? Is it Milk Chamberlain? Or my favorite, Larry Blurred?
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Oh, it's Larry Blurred.
They're all good, though. They're all good.
We bring in Will Hill. He is the host of the Should Have Bet More podcast, at Not The Will Hill on Twitter. You can also find him on the Bear Bets pods, Chris Felica's Empire over there at Fox Sports. You have Indiana State, by the way, to win the NIT, correct?
I do. Got a little tight last night. I thought Cincy, their physicality, their athleticism was would give them some troubles, and since he had a nice lead, there were some spread shenanigans with that one late too, because I think
Yes.
that opened 3 and it got as high as to 5.5. I didn't do enough digging into why it moved. I don't know if since he was missing a couple guys, I'm guessing that's why, because you don't go from 3 to 5.5 just on bets. I wouldn't think, but that was us. Indiana State was not covering, then they were, and then it I think it landed 4, so it landed right in the middle. So these favorites continue to win. Although Ohio State in the other game was finally got an underdog to win a game in college basketball and just break up the monotony of constant money line parlays of all these favorites. So
Yeah.
it was a good game though. It was exciting. And Indiana State fouled up 3, and that kid for Cincy, he sensed the foul coming and he chucked up a 3 from like 60 feet. He was kind of in the act.
He was totally in the act.
Yeah.
But as you said, they're not going to give him a 79-foot in the act. But, by rule, maybe they should have. The announcers immediately dismissed it. They're like, by the way, I said West Virginia. Of course, it was Cincinnati. I got my Huggy Bear teams mixed up. What do you have Indiana State at? What'd you get them at, by the way, pre-flop?
Plus 850, I think.
Well, still. All right. 2 more games.
Not bad.
What about the Sweet 16 starting tomorrow? What do you like best on Thursday? Let's start there.
It's funny. For all of the blowouts and the non-competitive games, it sets up for just a great 4 days of games here. All the matchups are so good. They're so competitive. From a betting standpoint, I don't see a lot where I'm just like, I'm cutting in line to bet this team or that team. I would say my best bet, even though it's boring, UConn in some fashion, whether it's first half, full game, San Diego State team total under. Maybe the under at 135.5 is just the way to go, because I think San Diego State, they're well coached. Dutcher's a good coach. I think he's smart enough to know, hey, I can't run and gun with these Huskies. I got to slow the game down, maybe try to keep it in the 60s and try to steal it from there. So maybe just an under. I really think this is going to be very similar to the title game, where San Diego State, they have their moments, they're competitive, and then UConn has these little 4 or 5 minute runs where San Diego State can't score and UConn just pulls away. So I'm okay laying the 11. Again, every time you look at these lines with UConn, whether it's Northwestern laying the 14 or some of these other lines, like, oh man, that's a little too high. Then the game starts and you're 3 minutes in and you say, you know what, that number isn't too high. That number's a little light. So I would lay it here with UConn. I mean, you do have to worry at some point if you have a UConn future, if you're laying the points or whatever. Like at some point, they're due for a bad night in this tournament. I mean, they mowed through everybody last year. They've dominated the first 2 games this year. It's 8 wins in a row where they've just crushed everyone. Like it's not how the tournament usually works. But I do like UConn tomorrow. I would lean towards taking Clemson plus the points. I don't know if I'll bet it plus the 7.5. I think if you can make Arizona a half-court team and a jump shooting team, play zone, keep them away from the rim, you can frustrate them a little bit. And look, if they hit their threes, and you go home and you tip your cap. But Clemson, look, they've got Hall, they've got the bigs to at least, I think, hang with Arizona and compete. So Arizona plus the 7.5, Clemson plus the 7.5 would be a lean. I have no bet whatsoever. Iowa State, Illinois, that's a great game. To me, that's a complete toss-up. If I had to pick it, I would say Shannon's the best player on the court, so go with Illinois. But nothing like I'm dying to bet.
Yeah, he sure is the best player on the court. Not danger. Danger. Sorry about that, Will. We just had a moment. I have Connecticut.
Have you bet anything? I don't know if we talked about this in the chat. Have you bet anything on the Sweet 16?
No, not in the games. I was clear what I liked last week. I liked NC State laying the points. I liked Gonzaga laying the points. What day was that? Was that for Friday or that was Saturday games? I believe it was. Yeah. And I liked. I was on board with the team total under for Longwood playing Houston. Was it? I can't remember now each matchup. But so that was I definitely had opinions then for that day on a Friday show. But like for this Sweet 16. I don't love anything pre-flop. Let's go back to UConn for a second. So I have UConn to get to the Final Four at plus 180. I don't have them winning at all. But if I came to you from the future and I said, hey, UConn did not win this tournament. They got upset. They had a bad night, and this team played their A game and had exactly what they needed to beat them. Who is that team?
Great question. They could meet Arizona in the Final Four, and the Final Four would be in Arizona. So could it be Arizona with a little home court advantage? UConn has a bad night from 3, and UConn's going to have a bad night from 3 at some point. Just can they survive it? So maybe Arizona. Maybe it is Purdue. Maybe we're just all so biased that, hey, we've seen this team choke so many times and lose to St. Peter's and lose to Fairleigh Dickinson and lose all these bad games that they threw us off the scent, and they're standing there on that Monday night. So maybe it's Purdue. Again,
yeah.
Life on the line. Like UConn versus the field, I'd still pick UConn, but look, it's college basketball. It's a 1-game sample size. It's these coaches never do it until they do it. So I don't know. I guess Purdue or Arizona.
And getting back to your previous question, like if you made me play one of the games on Thursday, I think I'd be the one guy who would take Alabama plus the points. That might be my Alabama future talking through me, but I feel like nobody's giving them any chance or any love in this game against Carolina, so I would take the points with Bama. How about Friday? Any playing any of those for?
I like NC State plus the points. I just think Burns, you put him, and he's so much fun to watch. He's such a good passer. He's got that soft little touch. He's just so light on his feet for his size, and the shades of Zach Randolph. I think if you put him and 4 shooters around him, they're very tough to stop on offense. That's really hard to defend. The problem is, I think Marquette's going to pretty much get whatever they want. They can use Kolek and pick and roll and make Burns defend, make him defend in space, and that's probably not going to go well for NC State. So 6.5 seems like a lot. Maybe the over is just the best play because I do think both teams are going to get what they want here offensively. So maybe NC State plus the points, maybe an over. Look, Tennessee, Creighton, great game. Am I dying to bet either side? Am I dying to bet Rick Barnes? No. Creighton was certainly fortunate. I mean, Tennessee that got a little tight at the end. And man, if Tennessee had ever blown that game to Texas, we'd never hear the end of it with Rick Barnes. So I would say NC State plus the points and the over in that one. Those are the ones I like for Friday. I lean towards Purdue just because of or Gonzaga. I'm sorry, just because they've seen Gonzaga. This will be the 3rd time since last Thanksgiving. They played them in the regular season last year and this year. And I think the fact that you've seen Edey at least gives you a chance of, hey, we know what we're up against. He's such a unique player to defend where that helps you. Again, they were up 5 at halftime in the meeting this year. And they only shot 6 of 32 from 3, Gonzaga, and they have shot lights out the last month or so. So maybe they can hang in the game. The problem with Gonzaga, they're a thin team. And if Edey starts to rack up the fouls on you, that's going to be, that's a good live betting game because if Edey gets them in foul trouble, they don't have any answers. They don't have any depth. So, again, are any of these like completely mispriced here? I don't think they are. They're fun games, maybe in-game scenarios, but nothing like I'll have bets. It's just they're not going to be big bets. And I don't know. I feel like a lot of the lines are kind of on par here.
Yeah, if I threw out Illinois, Iowa State, which is a 1.5 point spread, and I threw out Creighton, Tennessee, which is 2.5, and of the remaining 6 games, I told you, hey, which is the old Megapod question, which is the favorite most likely to lose outright, you would say?
Or North Carolina, just because Bama can bomb in 18 threes, and that could be it. So I'll say Bama.
All right, and what's your Final Four right now? I don't know what it was at the beginning of the tournament, but if you look at the Sweet 16 right now, and your hunch would be what right now for your Final Four?
Yeah, I'll go UConn, I'll go Arizona, I'll go Purdue, and I'll go Houston.
Chalkity. Those are all ones, right? 4 ones. There we go.
No, Arizona's a 2.
Oh, Arizona's a 2. That's right.
2.
You're right.
Yeah. I mean, there's only chalk left. It's not like it's not like last year. And you were on top of this. Hey, we're not entitled to these upsets. 3 years in a row, we got 15s in the Sweet 16. That doesn't happen every year. This is just one of those years that didn't happen for every year.
Okay, last one. Will this be the year, the first time ever, that the Elite 8 will be all 1s and 2s?
No, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was.
That would be the first. Again, we've had one that was 1 versus 2, 1 versus 2, 1 versus 2, 1 versus 3, but never all 1s versus 2s. Baseball begins in earnest tomorrow. Will's got thoughts. We will pry them out of him. More courtesy of the Progressive Guest Line next.
A numbers game on VSiN, the sports betting network.
There's never been a better time to have skin in the game with DraftKings Sportsbook because right now we have a VSiN exclusive offer for new DraftKings customers. Earn a $500 bonus bet for every $1,000 you wager. You can earn up to $2,500 worth of bonus bets in your first 3 days on DraftKings. Do not wait. Download the app now. Use code ANG when you sign up and earn a $500 bonus bet for every $1,000 you wager now. Skill Alexander, we get tweets at Beating the Book. This is from Michael Burns. I've noticed you tend not to have tennis plays later in tourneys. Do you feel your edge gets smaller as tourneys go on? It's just been the last couple weeks where it's worked out that way, Michael, but you're right in noticing that. And it's just because in both Indian Wells and Miami, the chalk got there. And so, yeah, late in the tournaments when it's the best players in the world that have happened to have advanced, the edge is minimal. In other tournaments where that doesn't take place, then it's a different story. But yeah, just so happened that in the Sunshine Double, that's been the case. This is also from, let's see here, Mr. Lucky. I had the White Sox under 84.5. They won They won 61. I had Seattle under 89. They won 88. That works out to a 2-0 last year. He wants Roxy to come back on the show to give his season wins, but Roxy's in retirement. We get a lot of Roxy tweets.
Easy winners last year.
Easy win. One was easy, one not so
Rocky
much.
J.
Yeah. 2-0 is 2-0.
That's right.
And then a lot of questions for baseball a little later on. A couple things we have to clean up here. Not clean up, but update. One, me, you, and Crack, before we get back to Will here. Me, you, and Crack did a draft for March Madness. I had Houston, Arizona, Kentucky, and Creighton. So Kentucky is gone.
And this was each of us $100 in the pot. Team that goes the furthest, that person wins.
That's right. You had the first pick, yeah?
I had the third pick.
You had the third pick.
That's right.
Who had the first? Crack had the first pick?
Crack, yeah.
Oh. Crack had UConn, Purdue, North Carolina, and Iowa State. So he's got everybody still in it.
Yeah.
And you have Auburn, Tennessee, Marquette, and Illinois. So Auburn is done for you.
We're trailing Crack. We got to catch up.
Trailing the Crack, man. The other thing I wanted to update is a couple days ago, came on here and talked about the most annoying commercials during the March Madness run from Thursday to Sunday. And I said, you know what? I'm going to put it to a poll on Twitter. No? You're upset with me?
I don't have a poll ready yet.
You don't have a poll ready yet? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, maybe we'll update it
Results
later.
to come soon.
I just want to tell you this. It was way closer than I thought it was. Way closer than I thought it would be, I should say.
I am not shocked by the leader at all because it is the one I voted for.
I thought it would win in a landslide.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm stunned that the second one is as close to it as it is.
Me too. Oh, that's a good tease.
That's a tease.
That's a tease, ladies and gentlemen. That's what they call that in the biz. Will Hill is back at Not The Will Hill. He's the host of the Should Have Bet More podcast and, of course, part of the Bear Bets Pod crew. Will, baseball tomorrow, man, courtesy of the Progressive Guest Line. Baseball, how pumped are you? I am very pumped by this.
Very excited. I was just flipping through the channels yesterday, and there was a spring training game around. We were talking about this before. I was like, how is spring training still going on? It feels like this is the 7th month of spring training. Just get it over with. We got to get the season going. Look, not to complain too much, but why do they have it up against the Sweet 16? It used to be its own day where, all right, if it's on the same Monday as the national title game, that's fine because the national title game's so late, 9:30 at night, where you can have its own day and it can breathe. I don't know why they have it against the Sweet 16, but it's here, it's back. It's a lot during the day. The great pitching matchup, Strider versus Wheeler.
Yeah.
You just go down the line, all these aces versus each other. Not, again, same sort of thing with the Sweet 16. It's fun as like a fan. I'm happy it's back. It's very hard to bet baseball on opening day, especially now because, hell, these pitchers don't even pitch deep into the game come playoff time. Opening day, you might see 4 or 5 innings out of these guys. So, maybe that's a way to attack it with the props. If you see some of these strikeout props or out props, you just play the under on those, figuring, hey, these managers are so conservative. These front officers are so conservative. These pitchers, maybe you play under on some of these pitcher props. And again, it's very hard. You don't have any data to go on. You don't have any current form. These pitchers, in Florida, Arizona, where spring training is, it's 70, 80 degrees. Now you go in the Midwest, the East, it's 40 degrees outside. You don't always have the command of the breaking ball. So it's not always the easiest to bet. That being said, these are the games I like for tomorrow. No, I did like the Yankees tomorrow, and I did bet. I thought the Orioles was a little cheap, minus 180 or so against the Angels. But again, I'd probably tread a little lightly on opening day.
Yeah, so you did fire. Okay. And I agree with you about opening day. Baseball gets nothing right, man. Like when I was a kid, they had an opening day where they had 2 games. It was awesome because you always knew what the 2 games were going to be. Then for most of our adult lives, it was the ESPN Sunday night game that started the season, and that was a standalone, and that was fun. And now you're right, it's Thursday on a Sweet 16 day, buried in that. And I would even argue, for as great as aces are on opening day, this is not like the greatest full schedule aces abound day. Like there are some games where you're like, that's all right. Because I can remember where it was nonstop, like borderline Cy Young Hall of Famers down the line. Not tomorrow.
I looked at some of these. I was like, that's your ace? Frankie Montas is your ace for your Cincinnati Reds, and he's laying minus 160? What's going on? Like, Yankees starting Cortez, that was not the idea.
That's for Cortez, right? Yeah.
It's not the idea. I do think they're going to be really good on offense, as long as Judge is healthy with him and Soto and some of the rest of the guys in the lineup. I do think they'll be able to hang in there without Cole. Now, you need more pitching than what they have to actually win, but I do think they're going to be fun on offense. But, yeah, I had the same reaction. I was like, wait a minute. Yeah. That's your ace. I will say this, though. This is my bold prediction for the 2024 MLB season. The Rockies will go winless. The Rockies are going 0-162. That pitching is so bad. And now the Diamondbacks, Like, I'd forgotten they got Eduardo Rodriguez. They got Montgomery. They just went to the World Series with all this young talent. The Giants with their pitching is really good. We were texting with you and Bear yesterday. Like,
Thank
get
you.
them in the playoffs. Them in a short series is not fun. And the Dodgers are the Dodgers, and the Padres are due for a bounce back. The Rockies are going to get killed in that division.
I like how Will texts me about the Giants. Like, hey, you should really check out this team, the Giants. They're pretty good. I'm like, oh, thanks. Jordan Montgomery goes to the Diamondbacks yesterday, by the way, is what he's talking about. Give me the season-long bet you have that you like the most. Give me the one that you're already worried about, and give the people right now, if someone is listening to this show and they're like, I want to make one baseball season-long bet. It could be a future. It could be a season win. It could be an award. It could be a prop. What would you tell them?
I did take the Yankees to win the division, and that's all but dead, I would say, with the Cole injury, or at least not in good shape. Boy, my favorite one, DraftKings has the Marlins at 78.5 wins. To me, that's an under. They are missing all their pitchers. Cabrera, Perez, and Braxton Garrett are all on the IL to start the season. And Arias, I mean, he had a career year. Is he going to duplicate what he did last year? He was starting to, drift, his performance was starting to dip at the end of the season. They lose Soler. So I do think the Marlins in that division, and if you look at just some of their numbers in one-run games, they were just completely fortunate to have the record they had. So again, you're in a division with the Braves, the Phillies. I actually think the Mets will be able to hit. Now, the Mets don't have enough pitching, but they have a good bullpen and a good lineup. And I think the Marlins under is a good bet. What were the other questions? My one favorite bet?
Yeah.
I will say, man, they didn't do you any favors. If you look at MVP, Cy Young, anyone that you think is like a sleeper, boy, the number's like half of what you want it to be. Like, I know people are like, oh, Tarek Skubal or Cole Reagans, they're nice sleepers for Cy Young. And I agree, those guys have good stuff. They're 9-1 to win the award. Like,
come on,
those guys at 9-1.
Yeah.
Carlos Rodon, who I think, he's got the stuff to have a bounce back season. I was looking at him, long shot sleeper, and I remember he was 50-1, a month ago. I was like, even that's too short. He's 35-1. So I don't know. They didn't really do you a ton of favors with these awards. I have no awards bets, futures, anything. I'm sure I'll add some along the way, but man, they're kind of taking the fun out of this. I thought this with NFL MVP too, where there's so many guys that can win it, and it's becomes, sports betting is so popular and people like the long shots. They're kind of slashing the numbers, saying, hey, we know you're going to bet it anyway, so we're not going to give you anything that's really great. I don't know if you feel differently, but to me, these awards are all cut.
Well, yeah, I was looking at Julio Rodriguez yesterday for AL MVP. Jason had come on here when he was like 22-1. He's 6-1. Great example of what you're talking about. It's great bet at 22-1, 6-1. Like, forget about it. DraftKings and other books, I think Caesars also, but DraftKings has these exactas in divisions where you can bet 1-2s. In exact order, and like some of them obviously, and I think Mark Borchard's coming up, he has a great one that he wants to give out that's like 20-1. Is there some Will Hill take on one of these divisions that is not the conventional wisdom, where you see a sleeper winning and perhaps a good bet in a 1-2?
I think Cleveland could win that division, so I mean, that's not completely crazy. How about this one? I think the A's can not finish in last place. Maybe they can hop the Angels.
Wow.
I think the A's have some young talent. They might be a year away. They might be the old Fran Fraschillo, a year away from being a year away. But they should at least be. I mean, to say they'd be better is, it's a low bar from last year. But the A's, I don't know. Maybe the A's sneaking past the Angels. And I will say this, as we're running out of time here, DraftKings and all these books, they did a great job. There is so much to offer. There's so much product.
Yes.
I mean, most wins at the end of April. Who's going to go 5-0? You can bet on any team who's going to hit the first home run of the season for that. I mean, there's just anything you could think of, you can bet. It's really incredible.
It's amazing. Longest winning streak, longest losing streak.
Yep.
Most home runs, obviously, but also, how many no-hitters are there going to be? Anything you can imagine. This is where the Too Cool for School books really, they should stop talking, because the DraftKings of the world have it right. There's hundreds of offerings, and you still got 24 hours to bet them. Will, always a pleasure. At Not The Will Hill. Should have bet more. Keep doing it, man.
All right, appreciate it, guys.
Will Hill, everybody. Courtesy of the Progressive Guest Line. We'll come back. NFL season win totals. We're going to continue that discussion next.